People, salam jumpa. Saya Ririn Agustarini akan mengajak Anda untuk memasuki dunia Iptek, dunia ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi Iptek Talk. Ini adalah sebuah tayangan talk show yang akan membicarakan mengenai dunia ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi dan tentu saja segala hal yang bermanfaat bagi kehidupan kita. Bicara Iptek, sadar Iptek, inilah Iptek Talk. Smart People, jumpa lagi dalam Iptek Talk. Kali ini kita akan membahas mengenai pemantauan pergerakan lempeng bumi atau Crustal Deformation Monitoring. Kita tahu bahwa Indonesia ini terletak di antara 3 lempengan bumi, yaitu lempeng Pasifik, Indo-Australia, dan juga Eurasia. Nah, pertemuan antara lempeng-lempeng tersebut itulah yang bisa menimbulkan gempa bumi di negara kita tercinta ini. Baik, kita akan berbincang-bincang dengan narasumber yang sangat berkompeten dalam bidangnya untuk membicarakan masalah pemantauan pergerakan lempeng bumi ini. Untuk itu kita akan sapa terlebih dahulu. Let's say hi to Profesor Teruyuki Kato from ERI, Earthquake Re-Institute Japan. Hi, how are you?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, hello, how are you, smart people?
Ya, dan juga Profesor Hasanuddin Z. Abidin selaku Wakil Rektor ITB. Selamat datang Pak Hasanuddin.
Selamat datang Ridin.
Ya.
Hi, smart people, how are you?
Ya, baik, Smart People, kita akan lanjutkan obrolan kita. Untuk pertanyaan pertama tentunya saya akan sampaikan kepada Prof. Hasanuddin.
Yeah.
Oke, baik. First question to Prof. Hasanuddin ya. Oke, Prof, can future earthquake be predicted?
Yeah, thanks Ridin. I think this is quite tricky question. If we talk about the earthquake prediction, actually there are 2 approaches. Deterministic approach and probabilistic approach. In deterministic approach, we can say, or at least we can predict the location and also the possible intensity of the earthquake in that location if it occurs. But in terms of timing, that's more difficult. Yeah, I think up to now there is nobody can claim that. For example, I can say that in Jakarta we will have an earthquake in July 2011. That's very difficult. But in Japan, I think there is a new approach that I think Professor Kato will elaborate later on, what we call a probabilistic approach. So rather than saying that we don't know at all, but at least we can say in the certain area with a certain probabilistic, for example, in 30 years, in this area, there is 30% of chance or 50% of chance that the earthquake with this type of magnitude will occur. In Japan, I think they are more advanced than us. They already set up this kind of map related to all their active fault. In Indonesia, not yet. I think that will be a good challenge for us in Indonesia. But I think Professor Kato will explain more. He knows that.
So how long you've been together with Prof. Hasanuddin or with Indonesian government for this method?
Well, as he said, Indonesia has not yet started this kind of project. Probably that method can only be realized in Japan. So I think if Indonesian government try to make up this kind of hazard map, I think this is very, very important for Indonesian people.
Okay, so Professor Nudin, so actually, what is the best method to predict the future earthquake? Dan juga kenapa kok belum diterapkan di Indonesia?
Yeah, the best method I think is to combine all the possible methods. Yeah, I mean scientifically we can study the crustal deformation using, let's say, geodetic techniques, basically using the GPS, INSAR. And we can also study the minute movement by using strain meters, tilt meters. But at the same time, we have also the seismicity, the seismological methods, and also maybe from the geological aspect, we can do the trenching, yeah, to see the signature of the activity from the long time ago. Maybe also we can combine, I don't know, some people call this local wisdom. I think the best method is to combine all the methods together, yeah. And then your last questions about why in Indonesia, yeah, the hazard map is not yet established. I think that's related also to the priority in our government. Yeah, I think our government pay more attention to earthquake and tsunami after the Aceh. Before, I think it's very difficult as a researcher to get funding. Yeah, but I think now there is an initiative to set up a hazard map and starting, but as Professor Kato mentioned, as far as I know, in terms of probabilistic earthquake maps, I think it's not yet. And I agree with Professor Kato that this is very important. Maybe we should start with the area like Sumatra and Java, especially with the active fault.
The common area.
Yeah, for example, like in Yogyakarta, there is when we have this earthquake in May 2006. Nobody expect before this, the Opak Fault is very dangerous. But suddenly there's earthquake and 6,000 were killed. If we have this kind of map like Professor Kato, at least we can predict. Yeah. So I agree, government should do. But I think the government now in the right track. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think when it will be start?
We should start as soon as possible.
If possible today.
As soon as possible. As possible as today.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So, Prof. Kato, we need data for this, right, to predict the future earthquake. So, what are the main data needed to predict the future earthquake?
Yes, as Professor Abidin already pointed out, I think the crustal deformation data is very important because the earthquake is a result of accumulation of crustal strain. Crustal deforms, and when the certain amount of crustal strain or deformation reaches to some point, then the earthquake occurs. So what is very important to monitor is to measure crustal deformation. So in order to measure crustal deformation, recently the space geodesy, a geodetic technique, is used. Like, as you know, the Global Positioning System, GPS, is widely used to measure the crustal deformation. But also, in addition to crustal deformation data, also we need the earthquake data. Because we have lots of earthquake day by day, so we have to precisely monitor where the earthquake is occurring. That gives us very important data about what's going on in the crust. So both of crustal deformation data and earthquake data should be combined.
Okay.
That is very important.
Okay, so the data completed previously is very important for the next prediction, yeah?
Exactly, yes.
Oh, okay. And Prof. Hasanuddin, selain GPS, ada cara lain nggak atau metode lain nggak sih?
As I mentioned before, and Professor Kato mentioned before, GPS is mainly to study the crustal deformation. But nowadays, as you know, that there is a radar satellite like INSAR that people try to use it to study, although it's still sometimes quite difficult. But also there's a tilt meter, there's strain meters, and other methods like seismicity, geological methods. We can do a trenching, make a hole and to see what is the structure of the fault from the previous. The local wisdom, this is really, I'm not sure. Some people in Indonesia believe that before the earthquake, usually the animal get anxious. Maybe the snake going out of the tree.
Naturally sign.
But this is debatable, We don't know whether it's true or not,
Okay.
Because we cannot ask the animal, why they are getting anxious. Some people say also they can see this, what they call it, the earthquake cloud. There is kind of cloud that going up. Maybe Professor Kato can tell us also about the local wisdom in Japan.
In Japan, okay.
Well, as a scientist, I do not believe those kind of local wisdom. But from the ancient time, the many people was very much worried about earthquake. So people are a little bit so sensitive about what happens before the earthquake so that they can escape from that earthquake. The people found, as Hassan bin Abidin already told us, that the people found many strange animal behavior or the so-called earthquake cloud. But no scientist has ever looked very carefully at those kind of phenomena scientifically. So we cannot say at this moment that those kinds of the synoptic phenomena or local wisdom could be used for predicting earthquake. I think in the future also, I think anyone should not rely on those local wisdom to predict earthquake. That would be a little bit risky for people to make, for example, panic and that kind of thing. So that people should rely on the scientific results or the well-established the close monitoring of earthquake and cluster deformation should be used.
Oke. Ya, Smart People, kita akan jeda dulu sejenak dan kita kembali lagi setelah yang berikut ini.
Kelangkaan pupuk dan melambungnya harga adalah masalah bagi para petani. Insinyur Ali Zummashar, peneliti di Depnaker Trans, menemukan pupuk organik unggul mikroba Google dengan teknologi bioperforasi yang diberi nama BioP 2000Z dengan harga yang relatif murah. Teknologi bioperforasi atau menyuntikkan mikroba ke dalam tanah berfungsi menyuburkan tanah dengan memanfaatkan mikroba yang ditambah energi matahari dan air. Disebut mikroba Google karena mikroba tersebut bekerja seperti Google, yaitu mencari secara otomatis zat potensial dari kandungan mineral tanah untuk menyusun bahan organik yang dibutuhkan. Fungsi lainnya juga untuk menyuburkan kembali tanah yang tidak subur atau lahan kritis seperti bekas tambang, tanah berpasir, lahan gambut atau tanah yang rusak karena penggunaan pupuk kimia yang sudah terlalu lama. Pupuk mikroba Google ini juga pernah diuji cobakan pada bekas tambang emas di Korengpangi, Kalimantan Tengah. Dengan menggunakan 3 liter pupuk mikroba Google untuk tiap hektarnya, lahan penambangan emas dapat subur kembali. Sedangkan untuk tanah berpasir membutuhkan waktu yang lebih singkat.
Terima kasih Smart People, Anda masih menyaksikan Iptek Talk dan kita masih membicarakan mengenai pemantauan pergerakan lempeng bumi bersama dengan narasumber kami. Oke, Prof. Zainuddin, kalau kita berbicara mengenai gempa bumi, tektonik dan lain sebagainya gitu ya, sebetulnya tanda-tanda yang paling bisa kita lihat, tadi kalau kita berbicara mengenai local wisdom, oke lah, tadi kan Prof. Kato juga bilang bahwa bisa dipercaya bisa tidak as a scientist, he doesn't believe in local wisdom begitu kan. Tapi kadang-kadang kan mungkin ada gitu, tanda-tanda alam yang bisa jadi at least pegangan kita dulu gitu loh, bahwa sepertinya ini akan terjadi sesuatu gitu. Apakah gelombang laut yang mulai tinggi atau apa kira-kira?
Yeah, this is actually the very difficult question, yeah. Whether there is a pre-event before the earthquake. Yeah. If the volcano is quite easy, you can see the smoke and everything. Yeah. Okay. But the earthquake, to be honest, by eyes maybe it's difficult to predict. But that's the reason, as Professor Kato said, that that's the scientific method will be important. I mean, in case of GPS, if we have, let's say, continuous GPS running, then we can see the movement time by time. Then perhaps maybe we can see what we call it the pre-seismic deformation. But even that one is very difficult. Not every earthquake showing the pre-seismic deformation. Yeah. For example, in case of Kobe, I think Japan has very advanced monitoring system. Yeah. But still, they cannot predict the Kobe earthquake.
Right.
Maybe Professor Kato.
Okay, can you share us about that?
About Kobe earthquake.
About Kobe earthquake?
Yeah.
Why you cannot predict it?
Yeah.